between us. And on the way home, walking down Woodland Avenue, Marie'd say, "Is there any sugar on my face?" And I'd look, "No." "Is there any on mine?" You know, because you don't want to walk home and you got this white powder on your face. Marie and I still talk about it. Yeah, we did a lot of things together. Things were so tight that when you did get something, you truly, truly appreciated it. And then the greatest thing was once in a while, I don't know how often, but my father would take all the kids to the shoe shop on Woodland Avenue, where it's all they sell is shoes. And we get shoes, new shoes. Oh boy, that was something. Yeah, putting cardboard, that was a given. Till you got them mended. You know, that's a hold off until you, I don't know if they get the money or what, but there were some interesting times growing up and then hard times. But we didn't know they were hard times. But I'll tell you, you did appreciate things a lot more. You never got anything, and when you did, you really cherished it. And on Saturday nights, in the summertime, not every Saturday, my father would buy us all an ice cream cone. And I remember that. You didn't bite into that. You licked it. I mean, you made it last. And we would talk, Marie and I was that close because of our age. And you'd look and go, and then she'd do the same, and we meant it. It was good. Then when my father wouldn't let Marie go out to the dances, you know, I don't know, 12 years old, I don't know, she had to be 16, 15, I don't know. But she loved to dance. He wouldn't let her go. And in the wintertime, when it snowed, my father had to go to work. Oh, Marie thought that was the greatest thing in the world because she would go to the dance. And my mother would be a nervous wreck. "You can't go, you can't go." Marie would walk out. She didn't listen. And the concern was, and it happened, my father would be out on the railroad, walking them tracks, keeping the switches clean so that the tower could switch the switches. And he was out doing that. Of course, he had his men doing it too. Marie loved it because Pop's working. But Pop used to come home. He had wet feet. His shoes were soaked, you know, from the snow. To change. And boy, if she wasn't there, my mother would catch it. Like she really didn't have control. She did not. Marie just walk out. But Marie was bold that way. Not, she wasn't being a smart ass. She wanted to dance. She wanted to enjoy that. And I remember, I probably told you this. Marie conjured up a way of getting out on Friday night. We were going to make a novena. The Italian church, we didn't belong to it, but you could go to any church. On 62nd Street, I think it was, used to have novenas on Friday night. And Marie would tell the parents, we're going to make a novena. And she would go to the dance, and I didn't. I didn't dance, I didn't go, I was younger, and I wasn't part of her crowd. And I used to have to hang on a corner freezing my ass off. And I wasn't smart enough to go to some store or something, you know. I don't know. Anyway, I'd freeze like hell, waiting for Marie to get done dancing. We did a lot of things together. Yeah, the donuts. You get a whole bag of donuts. I mean, a bag full, broken for a dime, but nobody had a dime. They didn't. Then I loved the movies. I loved them. That was everything to me, especially Saturdays. Saturday they had, I can't remember what they call it. Called it the chapter. Every Saturday was a chapter to this ongoing thing after the movie, after the main movie.
The cliffhangers?
Yeah, and mostly cowboy stuff. Boy, I loved that stuff. But I would go out in the neighborhood picking up newspapers and then tying them together and bringing them to Max up the street to sell the papers to get myself 10 cents. And I did it. And then again, I'm repeating, they put a penny tax on the movies. Everybody was saying they're not going to the movies no more. They're not going, but they did. And I forget, it was some kind of state tax. Oh, people rebelled, but to no avail, the tax was there. But you know, I think you appreciated stuff a lot more in them days. Of course, you didn't get it all the time. And when you did, you were happy. I remember some kids, I never did it. You got the newspapers, and there's the newspaper, and you get a stack of them, maybe like that. Then you get a rope and tie it this way, and you bring it to sell by the weight. And I never did it, but some kids would try to put bricks in between for the weight. The brick was probably more, cost more than the damn paper. No, I never did that trick. Max Greenberg, right up the street on 61st Street. And he had a son my age. I went to school with him, to high school. Fred Greenberg. Well, you really appreciated getting stuff in them days. I guess kids still do, you know, it's a treat. Didn't come easy. And my sister Jean never did anything wrong. Marie would, she, you know, like I say, sneak out to say you're going to the church and you're going to a dance, and Jean wasn't like that. And Marie used to resent that. She said, she used to call her the saint, and she'd say it like, you know, with disgust. But Marie, oh, she's a saint. I remember when my brother Bobby died. His name was Alexander. His name was the same as my father, Alexander. In Italian, it's Alessandro. Yeah, I remember him. I remember when he died. We were all sitting, my godfather was sitting next to me. The casket's over there. In them days when you died, they brought a casket in the living room. That's where the viewing would be. You didn't go to undertakers. You hung a crepe on the front door. If it was a young person, the crepe was white and gray for middle age and black. It was tradition. You knew that somebody old died if it was a black crepe, and it was right hanging on the front door. Yeah, my parents went through a lot raising all of us kids. And every Sunday, my mother made handmaids. That was a given, and it was a treat. She made good spaghetti, good sauce. Believe it or not, my grandmother's sauce was better yet. It was. And it was a given. I mean, not just my opinion, everybody. And yet, she learned from her mother, right in the same kitchen. And my grandfather never learned English. He was a crossing guard. In them days, you know, he used to stand with a pole with a round sign on it saying stop at the crossing, you know, to block the cars from going over the railroad. And the bell would be ringing, bang, 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 bang. And that was his job. He couldn't read or write. He didn't donate anything to the family. I mean, he just was a figure. In them days, it was quite common for a woman to run a family. I mean, the male was the male, and then supposed to be in trouble, the woman did it all. Boy, but my grandmother could cook. My mom could cook, but nobody made spaghetti sauce like Grandma. And on Sundays when we were growing up, 14, 16, 18, we'd go to the movies like Uncle Frank and Me. And then after the movie, you come home to eat. Oh boy. First of all, you were young and hungry. Second of all, that food was outstanding. And when they were making the spaghetti, like they'd have it made already and they'd lay it out on the table. We used to go up and catch hell for eat that raw dough, man, but it was good. Yeah, I remember a lot of nice, good times growing up. But I don't know how my father did it, but he bought that train when nobody could even afford to eat, but he bought that train. I'll never forget Lionel. Yeah. He had one thing in his favor, and that was he fixed train tracks for all the companies that had sidings right adjacent to the B&O. What the hell? That was his skill, and they had to have it fixed. There was a contractor in town that did it. My father, I guess, probably did it for less money. I don't know if it was that or the convenience that he was right there. But he made good money that way. And in those days, you got paid twice a month. And on payday, we would all get in the Durant, all the kids, and we were crowded. Drive to 9th Street, because that was all Italian food. And my father would buy a case of macaroni, a whole wooden box. And he would buy, not every time, but he'd buy the whole prosciutto. you know, that leg of pork, I guess it is. But he would buy stuff that lasts till next payday, which I think was every 2 weeks you got paid. We loved going down 9th Street because we lived in a different neighborhood. You got in a car, you drove down, and you got in the shop, you know, the store. It was an outing. Yeah. Oh, and when you went in the store, you couldn't all go in. There's too many of us, and it wasn't appreciated. But they'd be selective, like, okay, it's your turn. You know, you could go in with them. It was great. And if you were buying lunch meats, you know, they used to slice them on a slicer. The guy would slice a couple slices, you know, and you tasted it to say, yeah, give me a half a pound. But it was a tradition, really. And, of course, my father would slip me some. And we couldn't all go in the store at once. We had to wait in the car. Oh, it's my turn. It's her turn, you know. Growing up was good with a big family. I thought you shared an awful lot of good things, happenings. And I remember after the war, I don't know, wasn't long after the war was over, families could request bringing their dead son home. And my grandmother had my Uncle Tony brought back for a funeral. That was pretty sad. And closed casket. You couldn't open that box. They had 2 soldiers, 24 hours a day, on each end of that casket, one there and one there. They didn't want the families being curious, is he really in there? Is it my son? You know, that kind of thing, which you never did know. But the government tell you, yeah, that is. So my grandmom had Uncle Tony brought back. And I remember going to the funeral, going to the wake. And we used to go to the cemetery a lot, like almost, for a while there, it was every weekend. One day in the weekend, probably Sunday. That was a ritual. You went to Mass. From Mass, you went to the cemetery. From there, you came home. And Mom never went, because she was home making spaghetti. And that was tradition. Oh, I went to that cemetery so often, Ed. Yeah. Yeah, we grew up in rough times, but family was wonderful. And life was life, and that, you know, you didn't know, you knew it was rough, don't get me wrong, because whenever you got something, you really appreciate it. Oh my God, make a big to-do out of it. But it was the normal way of life, so you accepted it and didn't know enough to complain or bitch. And I'm glad, you know, it's the way it should be. I remember when Maria was still alive, she used to get sick all the time. We were driving up to her parents. We had to stop. Maria had to throw up on the side of the road. We didn't know what it was, and finally they found out what it was. It was sad. She was such a good little girl. You know, we all have different personalities. She was good as gold. Well, none of us were bad. I remember when they announced to us, I think we were in the hospital, when they told us what was wrong with Maria. They told us she's got a tumor. And I remember crying. And I remember her looking up saying to her, "Daddy's crying." She didn't know what was going on. She never did know. And I remember the decision to have this tumor removed. She never made it. I don't know how deep it was, if they screwed up. You just don't know the answers. You have to assume everybody did the best they could, and they did. I know they did. But it just didn't work out. But she was so good. She was a good person. You know how we all have different personalities. She was all good. None of us were bad, but and then going to parochial school, I don't remember what the hell I'd do wrong, but the nun would send, like I was in one grade, Marie was one ahead of me. They'd send up to get Marie to bring her down. And the nun would say, "Now, when you get home, you tell your mother Edward did this. You know." I remember that. And they were quick to hit you, the nuns. God damn it. You had to sit there with your hands folded, and that's fine, but let me tell you, for a little kid, it's pretty goddamn hard not to, move around or find something to do. First of all, you get bored while they read, I don't know what the hell, they were reading the gospel or something. I don't know. Yeah. And I remember we were allowed to make a decision. Catholic school went up to 8th grade. And then you could go to high school. And the decision was, do you want to go to a parochial high school or public? We all chose public. They were too goddamn strict. Too demanding. And I had my incentive, in addition to others, was public schools had shops. They had a woodworking shop and a metalworking shop. And I loved working with my hands and learning. And for that reason alone.
Backing around, it's been doing it 2 or more times already.
Betty, you say that every night. It's a street down there. And that's the ambulance.
No,
They
what's
practice.
going on out there?
I believe it's the ambulance. I may be wrong.
Looks like a normal car.
Oh, it is a car?
Yeah, that's a parking lot right there.
Oh, yeah, but why all the red lights? It's the back end of the car.
There's some more cars coming in.
Yeah, there's a street out there.
Oh, there is a street out there. And there's street
What
lights,
is it?
too. If
There's
you
a
look-
street out there.
Yeah.
What?
There's a street.
A tree down?
Street.
Street.
Oh, yeah, I know there's a street, but what are these cars all backing around and
Well, there's a parking lot on the street. There's a little parking lot.
there's a parking lot? Oh, I didn't know that. Where's the
I didn't
parking
either.
lot?
It's right there.
Across the street?
Yeah,
Who put the parking lot in?
it's always been there.
Oh, I don't remember. Oh,
Yeah, it's because you park in the garage.
yeah,
Yeah.
we park in the garage, yeah.
Boy, is that ever nice. Like now, you got the car washed and all.
Yeah, okay, so everything's okay. I couldn't figure out what's going on out there. Like,
And if you have to go out and it's snowing, the car's not closed. You know how it is. You gotta wipe the windshield and the back. Yeah, that's nice being down there. And it's an
I don't
allocated
think I'd park on
slot.
that street at nighttime. I don't think I'd park on that street at nighttime. You know,
You say park on a street at nighttime. I remember during the war, I don't know why, I can't explain it. But if you parked on the street at night, you had to have a light on your car. A light. And it had to be on all night. I don't understand why. I knew at the time, but today I'm saying, what the hell good did that do? Tell you where the cars are? I'll look into that. Yeah, every car had to have a light on it. If you were parked at the curb. I remember the air raid wardens. They had, I don't know, what do you call them, mock drills or what? The sirens would be going off. And you couldn't show any light. Like if you turn your lights on in your house, you better have every damn window because the light didn't go through. Shades and... Yeah, they had air raid wardens, and his job was to make sure that no lights were being shown. Yeah, that don't make sense now. Your car had to have a light on it. I don't remember. And I was in the Navy with the guy that wrote the song, "Goodbye, dear, I'll be back in a year." I'll never forget him. He was a nice guy. He made a lot of money on that song. But we were on board ship together. We were in the same forecastle. Trying to think of his name and I can't. You kind of lived in the country. Do you remember the? Do you remember the war? The air raid sirens. Where you lived, they probably didn't have them. You were too rural.
When the regular cars were driving, did they turn their lights off? Maybe they had these little lights on these cars so they could see them?
I don't remember. I know they had them taped that there was only a window of light coming through. I remember that. I don't remember that kind of detail. Because in those days, well, I guess today too, everybody didn't have a garage. They parked in the streets. But it was required to have a light. Now, well, that don't make sense, does it? How come you got to have a light and yet you got to have the lights out? I don't remember. I don't remember. If you parked on the curb overnight, you had to have some little light.
So you went to the public high school because it had a wood shop? The public high school had a wood shop?
Yeah, I wanted to go to public school. I did. Boy, did I enjoy that. My father wasn't handy with his fixing things. He was a hard worker and a good provider. In fact, if anything really broke in our house, little plumbing or something, Uncle John. I used to take care of him too. He'd slip him a little something. But Uncle John did all our maintenance. It wasn't that much, but even fixing the faucets. In them days, all the faucets had little washers on them. Well, after a period of time, they wore out. You had to replace them. It's no big deal, but Uncle John did ours. Till I did it. I learned fast. I liked it. That's why I learned fast. I remember when my brother got killed in GE. Boy, that was terrible. That was such a shock. Unexpected. Goes to work, you get the word that he's got killed. My understanding was there was a tow truck, and he has a boom on it, and this boom picked up a steel plate, and the truck rolled over. The guy exceeded the ability of that truck. And my brother was guiding it, the plate. It rolled right over on him. They told my parents that he died instantly. Some well-meaning guy that was there told me he didn't die immediately. He took him 15 minutes to die, till he... I never told my parents that. Yeah, Uncle John worked at GE. Aunt Jeanette worked at GE. I worked at GE for a while. I didn't like my boss. He was a German from Germany. He had a thick accent. And he was over demanding. I'm really willing to work. But when I went there, you didn't select a job if you didn't have a skill. And I didn't have no skills. So they made me a drill press operator. If you want a monotonous job that'll drive you nuts, what they did, they would have a piece, I don't know, whatever it is, it's steel. And it had several different places that holes had to be drilled. Some had to be drilled, some had to be drilled, and then after the drill came a, what do they call it? It's like a drill, but it's very precision size hole. Oh, it'll come to me. You'll know what it is. But you didn't set up the drill presses. Like there may be 7, 8, 10, depending on what you're drilling. A guy came in and set them up. He'd set the stops for how deep and what size drill, and then you went from here and you flipped the jig and you did this and you went to the next. Well, after a while, and it was piecework. And I always tried to beat the rate. I only beat it once. They had them rates, and then I beat the rate, they came in and retimed it. They did. Like, hey, what's wrong here? And that happened. Oh, I couldn't stand that job, but I had to work. So, And finally, I told my father we were sitting down, eating dinner. I told him I couldn't stand it. You really don't like it there? I'll get you a job. He because of his situation, fixing tracks, any business that had train tracks, he would repair it. And he had connections. So he says to me, I'll get you a job in Ryerson Steel. And he got me a job there. I wasn't working there long, and they made me a leader. Because they were all low-lifers. Good people, but not too swift. And I remember I became a leader. I could run the crane, and I did. Whenever I had to, the guy was sick or something, I'd go up in the crane and run it. I'd run the most challenging job, and it wasn't really that bad, was the slitter. They put big coils 4 feet wide of steel, and then they would slit it to smaller sizes. Some of them had to be real precision. You had to put shims in between the blades and know how to set it up. But I liked that because it was more of a challenge. Ryerson Steel. My dad had a lot of connection. He could get anybody a job. The laziest guy I ever met, he just didn't want to work, was Uncle Joe. God. He and I both worked one time. I can't think of the name of the company, but we made, out of potatoes, they cooked them up, the potatoes, then they ran into this big hot drum, and then there was a knife. The drum ran around like that, but this was a knife, and it would peel off. Because it was hot, it would cook the slurry, whatever it was. And they were potatoes, and they would make potato flour. And in those days, it was all going overseas, potato flour. And Joe and I would work the drums. You had a putty knife, and where the knife hit the drum would gum up sometimes. So you had a putty knife, and all you had to do, keep it clean. And you had a machine, sometimes two, to take care of them. Joe got a job there. And Eddie, take care of this. I want to take a leak. And he didn't. He was a bum. And he would be gone for so long. And I'm taking care of 3 machines. You had to stay on top of it. If you didn't keep that blade clean, it jammed and wouldn't produce. He was the laziest guy I ever met, but he was quite capable of doing things, not just minor things, He was very good. During the Navy, he was a diver, and he used to be deep sea diving, and he could weld and burn underwater, and that was a trade in itself. And he did it in the Pacific. But boy, he did not like work. Oh my God. He would work to get out of work. Then he got a job with Litt Brothers. He was their maintenance man. And he became their head maintenance man. He was good with his hands. He really was. And I remember I needed brakes on my car. Take them over Saturday, because nobody was around on Saturdays. where he worked. And I drove, they had these overhead doors. I drove in, he jacked the car up and put all new brake lining on. You'd go to the store and you buy it and you had everything you needed and Joe would do it. He was good. I forget why he left Lit Brothers. Then my uncle Dominic, he and his neighbor got together and they were going to buy a bar. I remember he borrowed money from my father to supplement his part of the buying this bar. And my father lent him the money. And him and his neighbor didn't open it, they bought the press bar. It was called the press bar because it was across the street from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Bulletin was there too. And the pressman used to go in and have a drink. But it was called the press bar for that reason. And he was making pretty good money, doing good. But he borrowed, I don't know how much, money from my father, $300 or something. And Uncle Dominic got involved in and loved car racing. And he would sponsor different cars and different races locally. Well, he was with another guy going to go to Indianapolis and sponsor some big race. My father heard that and he says, "Hey, I want my money back. You got money to do that? You got money to pay." Dominic got it up. I think that's how my father got his money. I don't know if he'd ever got it if he didn't push. My father was respected though. He was a good, hard-working man, honest and straight. Never do nothing crooked. But I remember he used to take me on weekends to work. And I liked it because he paid me $2 an hour, just like he paid the others. Same money. And I didn't work that hard. Put the spikes on the tie so that when the guy goes to nail it down, they're there, and take the trash away, and he kept me busy. But I remember freezing my ass off. I wasn't smart enough to put on 2-3 pair of pants. And if you're not working and you're out in that cold, it's cold. Yeah, I worked with him in Henry Bauer Chemical Company on the tracks. Barrett made tar for roofs and tar paper. Couple different companies, but he on the tracks. He paid me good, my father. He worked also, one of the places was a lumber yard. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was 58th and Woodland Avenue. Well, off of Woodland. They were very, very wealthy people. They even had their own forests. trying to think of the name of McConnell? No. McIlvain it was called. McIlvain. And I remember Christmas time, McIlvain gave turkeys out to their employees. My dad got a turkey from them. They were happy to give it to him. He had a lot of good connections. His favorite thing, though, was playing bocce. He loved doing that. They would play, and part of the damn culture, or whatever you want to call it, is, I told you, whoever won, I don't know how they selected, but they would get to pass out the wine. And they'd give you a glass. He don't get none. And the guy's tongue would be hanging out, you know. It was part of the game. Of course, I never got any. I was too young, you know. I remember growing up, we didn't have a clock or a desk clock or any kind upstairs in our bedrooms. So like on Sunday when we would get up, you didn't know what time it was. So you went to my parents' bedroom and looked out the window, because across the street was McConnell's Coal. And they had a huge clock, that shape, but a huge one in their main window. That's how we tell what time it was, because we had to go to Mass. In them days, nobody had anything. But you didn't know. Well, you knew it, but that was life. You accepted it.